take some time, but I think we are live now. Yes, we are live.
Good stuff.
Great. Yeah, now it works. Hello, guys. And before we really kickstart the story for the different background today, I'm in Paris now with friends. And if something is wrong with the sound or with the camera, please let us know. Because, yeah, everything is a little bit different today. And yeah, I'm so excited about this conversation because we will talk a little bit about a topic that some people forgot about. So I remember when Rockeray, the Prague conference, kicked off, we had this huge discussion how new Terra projects would come into the Interchain, and here we are. And today I will talk to DankUR, the famous Terra YouTuber. Dank, you have been on the show already, so I think no further introduction is needed. But I also have Dove and Larry on the show today. Dove is from Kujira, and Larry is from Mars Protocol. So maybe, Dove, you can start a little bit talking about yourself, introducing yourself. What have you been working on so far, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. No worries. Thanks for having us, Yuri. Yeah, so basically, as you know, and I guess that's the topic of the call, but we were a protocol on Terra, handling largely liquidations. So basically, we built a marketplace that allowed any user to come along and place bids, and by doing so, they both protected the markets that they were in, that they were bidding on, and also able to get discounted, basically discounted assets. So, and that was pretty cool, and it was going really well, mainly alongside Anchor Protocol. But we had just started. We had a lot of talks with various people, including Akala, which we can probably get to. But then, yeah, of course, things happened, and we decided to move to our own Cosmos Layer 1. And yeah, it's just been amazing so far. Basically, I mean, can't say too many good things really. It's just been really, really good. So yeah, that's about it. I mean, if I can do a deeper dive later, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been about 8 weeks, and we got the L1 up, so it was pretty intense. But we're feeling a lot better now.
Yeah, sounds very lovely, and we will definitely dive deeper into this in a second. And now, Larry, you're also for the very first time on the show, so maybe if you could give us a small introduction about yourself as well, and maybe small and broad overview of Mars Protocol real quick. I think this would be super useful.
Yeah, so my name is Larry. I'm a developer at Mars Protocol. We are a lending borrowing protocol similar to Aave and Compound if you are from the Ethereum world. So we launched our product on Terra back in March. It all worked pretty well until Terra stopped existing. So yeah, so we are currently looking for a new home. We will launch our new chain, and we are going to also launch our protocol on Osmosis and a few other chains following that. So my neighbor is doing construction work, so sorry about that. Yeah, we have a lot. I have a lot to say about like the deep Mars architecture, how this chain work, how does it interact with our Osmosis deployment. A lot to say. We can jump in that a bit later. So other than Mars Protocol, I also worked on some personal projects. I built a liquid staking protocol on Terra called Stake. It launched about 12 hours before Terra crashed. So yeah, so it has already been forked several times, once on Terra 2. Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, and please don't worry about the construction site. I'm also from Lisbon, so I know Lisbon is a huge construction site at the moment. So completely normal. And yeah, you mentioned some very good points, and we'll dive deeper into this in a second. Before we do that, just a broad overview for people who may be new to the Interchain. So Cosmos's vision is that every project can set up its own blockchain. Terra also used the Cosmos SDK in order to set up their blockchain. But then we saw many, many projects such as Kujira and Mars launching on Terra itself. And because now Terra isn't existing anymore, they are launching their own Cosmos chain. And this is very interesting because thank you, I remember we met for the very first time in Prague. It was shortly after the Terra drama. And then you somehow entered the Interchain very, very quickly. So could you share some experiences with us here?
Yeah, and just maybe quickly that nobody is offended. I mean, Terra Classic is still out there, and there is right now also Terra 2, right? And I think like we've seen projects deploying on Terra 2, and there are still projects that are also running on Terra 1, just that everybody feels comfortable because, I mean, it's for everybody a difficult time. And you said it, Yuri. I mean, we met in Prague. It was basically just a few days after everything happened. Crypto Cedo, shout out to him. He said, dude, just come over here to Prague. There are a lot of great people around the Cosmos space that you maybe want to also meet and talk to them. I mean, I have been myself from a feelings perspective, always part of the Cosmos ecosystem. I have been covering osmosis, but of course, I mean, everybody knows that I was focused on the Terra ecosystem itself, but it's so cool that it's always the same in life, right? If something goes down, something else just emerges out of this, right? And it was great to see now that Kujira is already able to have their own blockchain in life. So I mean, congratulations, Dov. It's still crazy to even think about it that you are right now running on this disclosure. Yes, we are a validator on Kujira, and thank you to everybody who's delegating to us because proudly #1 right now. Let's see if we can keep that one up there. But the same is then coming from Mars next, right? So another protocol which just saw a chance of that maybe there is even more upside to the scalability also that they're trying to plan here to go on an own chain, and then having like Mars. I mean, Larry can talk about this more, the outpost. And then, I mean, Dov, maybe you can say it for yourself, but I feel like the whole liquidation piece is like having outposts on different chains, be it very soon on the Akala piece. So everything on Kusama, on Polkadot. I mean, it's super exciting and cool that this interchain future is not a future anymore, it's present right now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, 100%. Just from our side, it's been a huge game changer. I know there are some really good lending markets coming to Cosmos. Of course, Mars is going to be massive. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, exactly as you say, it does seem to make sense for us to be sitting at this layer now. You know, actually at the layer 1 level, for a lot of the reasons you just spoke about. And yeah, the fact that it all pretty much comes out the box, I think, honestly, credit, I think, needs to go to Cosmos-SDK, Tendermint, you know, those developers, those creators, because it's, you know, I'm pretty sure there's nowhere else that you can, you know, spin up a blockchain as such and have it be so robust. So yeah, it's fantastic for sure.
Yeah, and also very well said, Dankior, that with it's not a future anymore, it's present. And I really agree with that because I've been in the Interchain for a very long time now, and like just in 2021, beginning of 2021, there was nothing. We had the Cosmos Hub, maybe Kava, but Kava wasn't even IBC enabled. There was not even IBC. And then in June, Osmosis launched, and then we saw some projects here and there. And then everybody was excited about Umee, another Interchain lending protocol, and now Mars comes in, and we basically have another huge hub in the Interchain. So we have way more opportunities as a user now. But now let's dive deeper into the aspect that you mentioned, Dov. So you launched your own blockchain now. And before that, I mean, you mentioned your approach in the Terra ecosystem, and now you're having your own chain. So if I'm not mistaken so your approach on Terra was very different from the approach you're taking now, because now, as I understood it right, also projects can build on top of can build projects on top of Kujira. So could you put this a little bit into like an order?
Absolutely. Yeah, no worries. So I don't want to say we were confined in Terra. Like we did that on purpose, right? That was the whole idea from our side. So it's kind of not the right word, but once things unfolded, we realized that actually, hang on, we could, sort of, first of all, be the masters of our own destiny and work with the tooling that we're very much used to. That's obviously an important thing. Coming from Terra to Cosmos, the jump is pretty straightforward. We were also lucky in terms of the timing because CosmWasm 1 was like literally hot off the press. So RBC, RCA, CosmWasm 1, like literally we were able to just dive ahead and build with all of those out of the box, which was fantastic because, you know, I know other L1s and protocols had to actually upgrade, and, you know, there's a bit of technical debt involved in that. So the fact that we were able to redo a lot of that stuff and reduce the technical debt was huge. And yeah, as I mentioned, working with the Cosmos SDK and being able to work with CosmWasm 1 was really, really, really special. So yeah, in terms of our approach, I touched on it, but we had sort of spotted a bit of a gap when it comes to liquidations. We felt that liquidated collateral just going to, you know, what on Terra at one point, I think there was only pre-Orca and Anchor's new liquidation queue. I think there were only literally like maybe 7 or 8 bots that were going in, and it was a race to the finish. So how it usually works, and how it works on most lending platforms still with liquidations, is that basically the collateral just goes out there, and you need to have technical know-how, obviously create bots, but it's not just the bots. Your architecture needs to be insane to be able to race off and beat everyone else. So anyway, that's all fine. Nothing majorly against that, but we just thought to ourselves, well, you know, in this also, it's kind of in the spirit of crypto, right? Decentralization, and like, is it kind of fair for a user that doesn't have, you know, $10 million and all this technical know-how to not be able to access a market like that? That just felt a bit strange. So at that point, we put our heads together with Anchor. Not many people know this, but we worked really closely alongside them, even when they were building the queue. Like, we sent them a bunch of docs. We didn't actually write that particular queue, but that was for security reasons. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So we worked with them for a period of time. And then we created Orca, which is the app that you then go to and actually place your bids and withdraw them and all the rest of it. So when it came to moving to Cosmos itself, we started having a little bit of a bigger vision beyond that. And actually, people say to us, oh man, like like on the day, you know, things unfolded, you guys seem to just make the decision. But actually, in reality, it's pretty strange. We'd actually been talking about it for some time, at least 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say, sort of just, you know, bashing around some ideas and thinking, you know, we would love to be a hub where people can come and really put their money to work in a safe and trusted environment. That's kind of our thing, you know, grown up DeFi is our little tagline. And that's really what we want to focus on. How can we create tools, especially for markets that traditionally had been blocked off to people, right? I think the liquidations is a perfect example of that. So we created that system and everything was going well. And then we thought to ourselves, well, we go to the L1, we go to Cosmos. There's bound to be more Cosmos lending markets coming up. And as we know from Larry and other teams, that's just an imminent reality, which is going to be fantastic. But not just on the liquidation side. Okay, of course, with Interchain, RBC, and all the rest of it, it's going to make, you know, plugging into these other L1s or protocols anywhere on Cosmos pretty easy from the liquidation side because of all the stuff we just mentioned. But we had a bit of a bigger vision, you know, to really, I suppose it sounds a bit cheesy, right? Everyone wants to bring crypto to new people outside of crypto, and everyone says that, and I get that, but it really is something that we're passionate about. So we had started thinking, well, we have other ideas, you know, we're builders. I'm sure most of you that follow us kind of know that, you know, we just go and go and go. So we didn't really want to be bound to sort of just one direction, one, you know, okay, we're the liquidation guys. I guess that's still very much a flagship product, but we built our DEX fin now. It's 100% order book DEX, which we feel is pretty important because I don't think there's too many around that are actually 100% on chain. You know, most of them need to use pretty much Web 2 technology, databases and stuff in order to perform certain functions. So we're really happy with that. That's brand new. It's been up a few weeks. Obviously, we need to start driving liquidity, and we have plans for that. But beyond that, as I say, we really want to try and bring the idea of sort of like decentralized commerce as well right into people's hands and make it as easy as humanly possible. And a lot of that is UX, right? We're really proud of the UX work we do as well as the technical stuff. So, you know, I think we're going to look into tons of areas. Payments is going to be a big one. Payments for businesses. If you think about especially emerging markets, every single person in my native country, South Africa, for example, they have the highest number of mobile phones per capita, I think, in the world. I mean, that stat was maybe a few years old, but it's bound to not be very different now. So you imagine you've got people that are walking around with smartphones, but the infrastructure is severely lacking, and you have problems with inflation and that kind of thing. So crypto really does become a shining light when it comes to that. And if you can imagine just going off with your mobile phone and tapping it, and boom, the transaction's done in the time that a block takes. That's really exciting. So yeah, we're gonna push to be able to give people access to markets, ideally that they haven't before, or try and give them tools that perhaps make it a little bit easier, a bit more efficient, and then look towards going the whole hog and actually really opening up crypto to the outside world. And we're not just doing that by building products. We have a pretty comprehensive plan and a marketing strategy that will be coming up, that's been worked on for I think 6 months now, that will hopefully bring a lot of new people in specific niches into the game. So yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And actually, I've been to many African countries just before the COVID pandemic, and I had the same impression. But before I hand over the word to Dankyu and Larry once again regarding Mars Protocol, one more follow-up question regarding your chain. So if I'm not mistaken, so you are using a permissioned version of CosmWasm. So people have to basically apply for when they want to launch a protocol. So could you talk a little bit about this and why you decided to take this road?
Absolutely, yeah. No, it can seem a bit contentious. It wasn't so much a case of like so how it works is protocols simply need to go through governance. So it's actually the community that decides. It's got very little to do with us. We figured that we would like to try and align. Well, we have our brand, we have our voice, we have our message, which is clearly this grown-up DeFi thing that we've been pushing. And already the 3 protocols that have gone through the governance setup and had votes passing or are in the middle of doing them are all very much aligned with that. The reason we did it is because we didn't want to just simply leave the chain completely open. Because of the fact that we really see this as being kind of like a serious DeFi hub. Now, if you can imagine any old thing, including scams or whatever you can imagine that can just come through, we just feel that can be a bit detrimental. And, we never really intended on being a chain that's going to have 2,000 or 10,000 protocols launching on it. We'd much rather that this is it's a kind of like a dedicated hub for grown up things that you want to do with your money. So that was the reason we went with it. Of course, if somebody managed to go through governance and pass something that was a little bit sketchy or whatever, then so be it. But we found that the community have instantly grabbed onto this message, and I mean, it's pretty hardcore in the proposals discussion in Discord, the community don't really let much slide, and they really push back on these protocols. So we just think that discourse that happens between the actual community and these projects that want to launch, these protocols that want to launch, is actually really healthy, and it kind of keeps everyone on their toes. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question as to why we did it. And so far so good. We've got some amazing, innovative, revenue generating products that are coming on the chain. And because we have no inflation, this is very important. We need to be conscious of the fact that revenue needs to keep growing, not just an idea that maybe revenue will come one day. So yeah, that was the reason.
Yeah, Yuri, I need to jump in here because we need the alpha, right? Dove, you need to share a bit on, I don't know, mainstream collaborations. You have a wallet coming. You talked about that. Maybe there is more about true commerce coming in there, right? In terms of that, I don't know, commercial topics are in there. I don't know if you can share something, but I would like to hear it, right?
No worries. Yeah, we are working on a wallet, which is not just going to be a wallet. It's going to be ultimately what will lead to, we don't know what it'll be called, whether it's called Kuji Pay, obviously just off the top of our heads. But the wallet is going to be able to do a bunch of stuff. Of course, you'll be able to even place limit orders, do some decent, obviously mobile version trading. and that goes off to the DEX, maybe even bidding on liquidations. And as I say, this will lead us towards this idea of like simple commerce from your phone, especially initially in these emerging countries where we have some reach and some experience. Beyond that, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I think us, we'll wake up one day and think, okay, wow, we need to do this, and we'll go off and build it. For now, we need to focus on building out this wallet because it's a huge task. But yeah, it's safe to say, I think, as mentioned, I think probably the alpha is really in the plans that we have to bring new people across. And I'm hoping that once we roll that out, people are going to understand the vision and kind of see what we're up to. But us, man, we like to build fast. We like to put stuff out there. So yeah, there'll be plenty coming. But yeah, for now, just wallets and then integrating with other. I can tell you that the Akala's Karura network will somewhat ironically be the first, post our launch, post Cosmos Layer 1 launch, lending market to go live on Orca. So people in the Polkadot ecosystem and in the Akala ecosystem are very, very, very soon. It'll pretty much guaranteed to be next week. So that's a bit of alpha. So people in the Polkadot ecosystem, and this is a native integration. In other words, we're not trying to do anything fancy. People literally connect with their MetaMask wallets and be in an environment that they're very much used to, and then place bids in as per the app as normal. So that's something that's pretty cool too. We can deploy instances of Orca on other people's infrastructure, and it's kind of set and forget, really. Like, it's there and it just runs. So that's pretty sweet. It's not like we need 20 nodes or something for every market that we try and launch on. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. We have an EVM queue and app as well as the Cosmos one. So basically any EVM lending market can plug in very, very easily. They literally just need to change where one function is called and point it to our queue, and that's it. So yeah, I think as I mentioned, there's a good few lending markets coming. I'm obviously very, very excited for Mars because these guys really know what they're doing, and it's going to be fantastic, I think. So yeah.
Let me ask you there. So do you approach the lending markets, or do the lending markets approach you? For example, let's say I know now very good a team on a specific EVM chain, right? Should I send them your way? Is it then very complicated for them? I don't know if you can share. Sorry, Yuri, for hijacking here a bit, but
no, 100% go. That's very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So it's a combination of both, especially initially. It was I'm basically biz dev among other things. We're a tight knit team, we like it that way. So it's a combination of both. In the early days, it was very much like, myself especially, just going out and trying to find people. But then I think as the app got more popular and as Terra was growing, of course, the whole thing just started building. And then we started getting tons of inbound messages as well. And that's been the case even now when we move to Cosmos with the Cosmos lenders as well. So that's pretty encouraging. But I don't like to just rest on my laurels. Like, I really, really want to. So yeah, Danku, by all means, please. Like, we honestly, any money markets that obviously has the borrowing side, we'd love to have an opportunity to explain why we think this is a good system. We're not saying it's the only system for sure. But if you want your community to be able to get involved in this way, then we think it's cool. But yeah, absolutely, man. Please send anyone my way, and we'll chat. But yeah, it's a combination of both is the answer, and more so as we grow, we get more and more inbounds. Yeah.
Because you say that you grow is like, what would be crypto Twitter without drama, right? And I think there was last week. Let's name it Terra Watcher, who I think in general is doing a good work in educating people and putting a lot of information there, asking the question of the revenue right now and putting a question mark on maybe securing the chain long term. I don't know if you can share a bit how you see the situation, because I think it's good that also people understand, as you said, you're a non-inflation chain, which I think is very powerful, but at the same time you make the clear decision of revenue will basically pay out also the staking rewards to also then hopefully help securing the chain. I don't know if you have any insights on how you see the revenue also developing long term.
Yeah, I can do. So because okay, we can talk about when we were at a protocol on Terra, because sort of if you think about the numbers and the people involved and probably the current pool of users and all that, they're probably still largely similar. So I think we can probably draw a fairly similar comparison if we talk about potential income, users, etc. When we were on Terra as a protocol, our APR, this is the weird thing, it couldn't really be calculated because we're not just literally leaking our tokens and giving that a number. It comes in through revenue, but a bunch of people did analysis and we were sitting between 20 and 25% at that point for quite a long time. So, and that was just Orca. That was just the liquidation product on one market. Granted, it was a big market, but it was one market with one app. So if you consider that we got to 20 to 25% just from actual revenue, Kuji was the model back then. So it works much the same way as it does now. Basically, back then, when you staked in the app, you would receive a basket of assets which were encapsulated by what we call the Kuji token. Now, when you stake with a validator, the exact same thing happens. You earn every single fee that we receive in any denomination that we receive it. And of course, with interchain accounts, RBC, etc., that's really exciting because with Cosmos, that just comes out the box. So in terms of revenue, of course, now the whole market sort of basically crashes and we're all rebuilding and going back up, but we don't even have a single market live on Orca yet. The DEX has been running just for a couple of weeks, and of course that has a lot of room to grow. And we're working on various ways to try and help the liquidity, but again, doing it in a genuine way, because we don't feel like it makes sense to give someone $2 million so that they can go and trade $2 million and then nothing happens. So yeah, we're trying to work on some interesting ways around that. But yeah, I think considering more protocols launching, more Orca markets coming, definitely, with the first one coming next week, that's all going to be genuine revenue streaming in. So, I don't want to try and put a number on it, but I'd like to think that this is going to grow sustainably. And even if we get to, I don't want to put a percentage on it, it might not look as fancy as some others, and that's only because they have a different approach. And I do understand that approach. You go in hard in the beginning and, you have a lot of inflation and then you taper it down. But, yeah, maybe it's a bit bold, but we'd like to think that because of the products that we have, they inherently produce revenue. And so our job now is to scale up those operations and add more markets. And as long as we do that, there's literally no way that the revenue doesn't increase and the APR doesn't increase, So it's kind of like just more back to kind of old school business. It's like we just need to get products that make money, rather than products that, say might make money and then hope that people believe that, that's really what we're going for. So yeah, I think more Orca markets and more activity, more protocols, it should be a win.
Yeah, I mean, you put yourself under pressure and basically you need to deliver now with rewards.
Exactly.
To put it out there. But that's something that people forget, right? It's basically a bet to every lending market that comes to you. People will get fees based on the staking rewards. So they will now accrue Kurara, man, that name is so difficult, right? They will accrue Kusama. And most likely also DOT over Polkadot. No, well, the Polkadot most likely not. It's just Kusama, but they will get more and more, right? The larger you grow, the more lending markets, the more people will get different assets, which also themselves then go up and down in price before they claim. So
that's it. Yeah, it works as sort of a hedge. It's sort of like a forced dollar cost average across multiple assets, which we think is pretty cool. We wouldn't go and integrate with a lending market that is basically a joke, and like it has a token, like a meme token that, like no one really like. So for obvious reasons, you will end up with what the market considers to be a basket of apex assets. And as Danku said, they'll go up and down, but the feeling is that as crypto grows in general, they obviously all swell together and you're sort of hedging yourself against all those positions in a way. Some people there's a few people that don't like it and they'd like to kind of convert the dust or whatever. But I think as it starts building and growing, the SQG model really, like, people were like, oh, we don't want, like a little bit of each of these tokens. But then as the model started proving itself and the APR increased, they were like, oh, okay, actually, I get it. You kind of need to stop thinking about your basket of assets really being a basket. Just consider the whole thing as like one little magical ball of goodness, and then it's less stressful.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you guys here, and also I think it's like kind of a good analogy from DanQR here that you also put yourself under pressure because, I mean, it's also difficult to develop somewhat of a hype. I remember the times, of course, FMOS obviously as of now, but also Juno when they just launched, people went crazy about it, and also it was very attractive to get into the validator set, so you were able to get a lot of validators on board. And this is kind of a challenge because some validator also have to run the infrastructure, and if there's no inflation, it's much trickier, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I can comment on that super briefly. I don't want to hijack because I'm also keen to hear from Larry. But on that topic, and I'm not saying it's going to be like this forever, and would never expect the validators to run at a loss forever. That would be crazy. But what I would say is that in terms of interest, even the market was about as down as it could be at the time we started onboarding validators. The validators, I think, don't get enough credit. I mean, these guys, there were 670, I think, validators in the testnet set, hoping, for a position. So, getting the validators are very altruistic, a lot of them, and they really do believe I mean, if they didn't, they would never offer to basically run on the bones of their asses, So I think those guys actually do have a greater vision. Most of them, I would say. I mean, and Danku knows this, of course, because he's doing it himself, and he's seen the conversations that happen. So even in this market, I think that shows some insane strength for Cosmos as a whole, and the community and the validators, because we're all interconnected. We have to be, like, because one doesn't work without the other. But as I say, the fact that there was that much interest, even though we were very, very, very clear about how we were going to run, the validators have been incredibly supportive. But yeah, we're under pressure. We need to be under pressure, and we need to go, and we need to make this work. And we thrive on that. We really want to do that. Yeah, that's just something we have to do now. There's no ifs. It's just about when.
Yeah, very exciting. And I think now we got a very good overview of Kujira also about your vision. And now I'm very keen to bring this into perspective by asking you, Larry. So with all of that in mind from Dove, so what is Mars Protocol's plan to launch its own Cosmos chain? So could you give us first a broad overview here, and besides how do you handle this with the validator set? Will there be an inflation in the beginning, etc.? So just that we get a good comparison here in the first place.
Yeah, so the first thing I need to clarify is that we have been planning on expanding to Osmosis and other chains long before Terra crashed. So it's not like, Terra crashed, we're jumping the ship. No, it's not like that. Right? So we're just executing the plan that we had planned out long before this happened. So back to the topic. I don't know if you guys already know about the overall architecture that the new Mars protocol will take. Do I have to briefly talk about that first?
Yeah, I think that would be very useful. Also, I think a good statement here is Mars that the Mars hub would serve as a Mars home in the as a Mars home base in the Cosmos galaxy. I think this would be a good analogy to describe it.
Yeah. So let's first talk about our competitor Umee, right? So the way Umee works is they implemented a lending protocol as an app chain. So let's say you have some collateral and you want to borrow against it. You need to do a multi-step process. You first IBC transfer your collateral to Umee chain. You then deposit. You then borrow. That's 3 steps. And the 4th step, you IBC transfer your borrowed asset out. So just a 4-step process just to do a simple borrow action, and that's 4 blocks on a number of blockchains. So it's a lot of friction for user to use it, and a lot of friction for protocols to integrate it. So we take an kind of opposite approach where we write our lending protocol in CosmWasm as WASM contracts, and we launch that on a number of different chains. So whenever there's large borrowing demand, whenever there's deep liquidity, we will launch there. So the first stop is obviously osmosis. And of course, we're also looking at other destinations such as Injective and Say, maybe Kujira, who knows? Yeah, so let's say you're a user of osmosis, you want to borrow and you want to deposit collateral and borrow. Because Mars Protocol is right there on the osmosis chain, you can just do that in one interaction with the wallet, and just one block on osmosis. That's it. And because the whole process is atomic and synchronous, it's also much easier for protocols to integrate. We can also do flash loans. I'm not quite sure how Umee can do flash loans when you have to do like cross-chain IBC stuff. I'm not quite sure. Maybe they have a solution, but I just can't think of a very easy way to do flash loans cross-chain. So yeah, so that's another advantage for us. You have something to say?
Yes, because I find this very, very interesting. You mentioned flash loans, and I think for me, I mean, of course, the comparison with Umee makes sense here, but it also reminds me a lot of Aave. It basically reminds me of a combination out of Aave and Umee. So we have this. Can I basically say that Mars Protocol combines the best from Aave and Umee, because you have this interchain aspect by having its own chain, and then you also have this aspect like the other approach to launch everywhere where you can find at least some liquidity. So is this basically the analogy? And then, by the way, we also offer flash loans?
Yeah, well, I haven't talked about our interchain component yet. So because that is where our app chain comes in, right? So, well, I just talked about the advantages of this design where we put what we call an outpost on every chain. What's the drawback of it? Well, that's the fragmented liquidity, right? Let's say you might have a huge amount of USDC deposited on let's say our Juno outpost, but there's not much USDC on the osmosis outpost. Then if you borrow on the osmosis outpost, you will have to pay a high interest rate. Well, while all those depositors on Juno are earning nothing, right? So here's where our Mars chain app chain comes in. So, well, this is not a feature that's going to come at launch, but something that we're going to build gradually over the long term. But the end goal is that the Mars app chain are going to be able to detect this kind of market inefficiencies. So the Mars chain we're going to say, hey, USDC utilization is super high on osmosis, but super low on Juno. Why don't we use IBC to move some USDC from the Juno outpost to the osmosis outpost, right? So,
wow.
Yeah, so in an efficient market, we would expect arbitrageurs to do this, right? But the reality, as we observed in Aave, for example, Aave has their lending market deployed on a number of chains, but the interest rate are not necessarily the same across those places. So the market is not super efficient yet. So here is what our Mars chain basically will do. It will use this interchain query and token transfer mechanism to improve market efficiency and allocate resources according to supply and demand. So of course, additionally, the chain will govern all those outposts and collect rewards like protocol revenues from those outposts and distribute that to stakers. So that's basically an overview of the role our app chain will play.
That's actually very mind-blowing, to be honest, because as far as I understand it, you also basically make the whole market more efficient. Like you do not only support, you do not even support only efficiency for all the users who are using Mars directly, but you also help generally users who are on Osmosis or on Juno and interacting with these protocols. Correct. So by detecting, you're also helping these protocols to be more capital efficient.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And by the way, this idea is not my idea. It is this idea is from Sunny from Osmosis. So kudos to him. Yeah. So basically, we are looking at 4 criteria on where we can launch. The first needs to be demand. If nobody gonna use our protocol, then we won't gonna bother to launch. Second, there must be deep liquidity because we need to have efficient liquidations to ensure our protocol solvency. Third, there needs to be an reliable oracle source. And fourth, there needs to be CosmWasm and IBC. So it doesn't need to be a Cosmos chain, but like Polkadot, people are working on getting CosmWasm and IBC on Polkadot. So that could be a destination. So as long as your chain satisfies these 4 criteria, it is a potential candidate for launching a Mars outpost.
Wow. Okay, that's like, I mean, there are like dozens of chains where this would be possible. So, for example, Juno. And is it important that CosmWasm is permissioned on these chains, or doesn't matter? It
doesn't matter. I mean, if it is permissioned, then the voters on that chain needs to allow us to deploy there, right? But it's not a blocker. Yeah.
I see. And I think that's also like an interesting conversation because now we were talking about how you guys are setting up your own blockchain, and now we also see 1 or 2 challenges here. Dove, you mentioned it already, liquidity. So how do you all want to incentivize users to bring liquidity to your chains? Maybe Dove, you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think initially for us, it's going to probably be the Orca markets that are opening up, right? Because that makes a lot of sense for us because it's something that we've done for a long time. So it's a little bit chicken and egg. So we'll sort of bring users to, ironically, like the liquidation side, and then hopefully, they will come through and use the rest of the suite of apps. So I think that's going to be an initial point for us to consider. And then beyond that, obviously, we're going to do the usual stuff with the DEX, trading competitions. We've got a hackathon that'll be starting, the usual kind of awareness stuff. And then we're also going to be starting a video series that's going to be educating people around the tools that we build, specifically Finn in the beginning for the DEX side, because that's something that we need, we need to get going a bit more. Obviously, it doesn't have the kind of brand awareness that Orca does. But yeah, so we're going to be having video series where we actually take people through all sorts of stuff around trading, because we found that most users, they see it kind of a DEX interface, in exchange, and they feel a little bit intimidated. So, everyone's like, oh, where's the swap? As if like a market swap is kind of the only way to trade a token. Whereas actually there's more efficient ways, but of course it requires some education. So yeah, it's going to be like a multi-pronged approach around education, awareness, and then bringing people in from the liquidation side, and then doing the usual stuff like the competitions and getting people understanding the tool. So that's the initial goal. And kind of separate to that, we'll be running this other campaign, which I can't really speak about only because we haven't even launched it yet and we're pretty excited about it. But yeah, we have a pretty significant campaign that we'll be running through in order to bring specific people into the brand. So yeah, that's kind of the cycle that we're looking at.
What's the name of the campaign, Dove? I missed it.
Nah, you cheeky. Almost.
Cool. Looking forward. Good stuff. Really, as you said, I think it's all about also education, right? And getting people in there. I know that you guys have been very active also on the Medium articles, right? Perugia, I think, was super active there, writing stuff down.
Exactly.
And yeah. I think that's crucial. And I like you're also, let's say it more easy memeable take on Twitter. I hope I don't offend it. I like
No,
it
no,
that it's
no.
more like you guys immediately communicate. You also react to other people. I think that's needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's that stuff as well, just trying to be responsive, trying to really go out of way to answer people and just edge away at growing that awareness. But yeah, for us, probably more liquidation markets simply means more eyes on the brand, which should result in we're obviously making some changes to not necessarily full scale changes, but like just a small little thing that we're adding across all our apps. There'll be sort of like a launchpad icon where you can just really easily, sort of like Apple style, go off and scoot into other apps. So yeah, I think that crossing people between our applications and protocols is going to be important. So yeah, I think it's a lot. It's awareness, it's education, it's competitions, and then it's marketing campaigns that hopefully will bring new users rather than, I think we've all spoken about it and we all know there tends to be a set of users that kind of just cycle through crypto, and especially Cosmos. I mean, let's be honest, Cosmos in general could use some more liquidity. I mean, we don't have to beat around the bush. Everyone knows that. But the exciting thing is that it has an insane amount of room to grow. And if you consider, I could probably mention DYDX. I mean, it's having a company like that putting their trust in Cosmos and going against the ETH maxis is a huge thing that they did. But that's, a rising tide floats all ships at the end of the day. It's gonna bring in tons more liquidity. And just like Larry was saying now, there's going to be insanely smart ways that people are going to be able to move liquidity around with the help of, like Mars and other people doing interesting stuff with RBC. So as more and more of that general liquidity flows in, I think people are going to go, oh, okay, I can put my money to work there, or I can go over there. I can, I can lend in Mars. I can maybe go to Orca and do some liquidations. I can pick a really good DEX to. So yeah, I think we're all going to kind of float up together. And that's the other thing. The more protocols, because that's what happened on Terra, right? Like the more activity there is. So I find it quite interesting with Cosmos. It kind of feels a bit like it has that family feeling like Terra. I mean, thank you, Larry. I don't know if you'll agree. It has that feeling, but yet we're all building L1s. It's kind of bizarre, but to me, it has a very, very similar kind of homey feeling. Everyone seems to get along pretty well, and everyone seems to be pushing for the same goal. So that part of it's pretty interesting.
Thank you. You want to add something to this?
Yeah, I wanted to see if Larry reacts quicker, but I mean, that's what Cosmos is so special about, right? That people are still interacting. They see themselves as the broader Cosmos family. I think Terra, even being a Cosmos-SDK chain before, was kind of special for itself because it had already a growing ecosystem. At the same time, I think Zaki was who mentioned it, like now we need also the different dApps coming on top of the chains, right? Not everybody creating their own chains. So let's see how this moves on. But I mean, Kujira is showing this, right? I think you have now 2 different apps live. I mean, you are also condensing the different stuff from before into that. So let's see how this moves on. But I mean, it's great if a builder here is sitting down and saying like, it's great that everybody is supporting us and that they're helping each other. But what you said earlier, I think right now the next need is liquidity and more developers and more people, retail, to also understand this. I think good wallet applications like you're building upon, I mean, Kepler is also doing a good job, and others will help to hopefully bring more people over. But I mean, in this bear market, it's probably difficult. Let's see how it moves on.
Yeah, well, it's Cosmos is like a tech dream, right? So from the builder's side, it's amazing. But as you said, thank you, like it's still required. That doesn't mean people are just going to suddenly flock in, but it should ultimately, because usually in crypto, people are basically following technological advances. Even if they don't really know it, that's basically what's happening in the background. So one would assume that this interconnectivity and the sort of ease of use and the security and all of these things that are kind of coming out the box in a way should lead to much more activity, some amazing applications, and just a lot more protocols and L1s and stuff, which usually that'll bring that'll bring new people along. So I think it's pretty exciting. And the bear market, it's a good time for us all to just sit down and build. I'm sure Larry feels the same. You kind of feel like you can breathe.
Everybody's saying this.
Yeah,
I hear this 100 times these days. Thanks God for the bear market.
Well, the bull run is insane. Like everyone's watching basically only token price, and then you're just coding away and going mad to try and keep up with that crazy hype, and all the influencers are going mad on Twitter, and your days are spent in a much more kind of panic state. I think we can still work as fast now, but I think there's a bit more headspace, right? Like, okay, a little bit of time, like maybe we can get through some important stuff. Yeah. Anyway, Larry, I'm sure you want to chip in. Sorry.
Yeah. So the question was how would our protocols attract liquidity? Yeah.
Yes.
So our secret weapon, well, not really secret because I already posted the forum post on it, is we are going to build this thing called the credit account thing. So an easy way to understand how credit account works is think about a car loan, right? So let's say you want to borrow in Aave, right? The first step you do is you need to first deposit collateral, and then you borrow against those collateral, and before you repay your debt, your collateral is locked inside Aave's contract and potentially lent out to someone else. You can't decide what to do with those collateral. You can't put it to like productive use, right? Car loan is a different kind of loan, right? So when you borrow a car loan, you don't have to deposit collateral first. But from the bank's perspective, the loan is secured because if you can't repay, the bank will take your car, right? So from the bank's perspective, the loan is collateralized by your car, but your car is not locked in the bank. It's in your garage. You can drive it, right? That is kind of how credit account works. You deposit some of your own asset, then you borrow against those deposits. But first of all, you can borrow more than what you've deposited. It's unlike on Aave where you deposit $100 worth of asset, you can perhaps only borrow 60 against it. You can't borrow too much or you may be liquidated. But in the credit account model, you can perfectly deposit $20 and borrow $100, right? And secondly, you still have control of your deposit. You can use those deposited assets and your borrowed funds together to do leverage trading or do leverage yield farming, whatever you can think of, right? So that's how credit account works. We think credit account opens a lot of possibilities. It can drive a lot of demand, a lot of usage for our protocol. Yeah. So just one more sentence.
Yeah.
I posted 2 forum posts on the things I have mentioned: our Mars app chain model and the credit account model. So check out Mars Protocol forum if you're interested.
Yeah, we will definitely put the links into this into the description below. But I wanted to ask you about the analogy you made with the car loan. So now a complete pleb question. But if I am lending money to buy a car, and I crash the car, well, then the car is decreasing in value significantly. And most of the times I have an insurance for that, so that, I don't know, the insurance pays for it or I'm completely wrecked. So where does the insurance aspect comes from here? So without having the risk of centralization, so it seems a little bit too good to be true. So where does this aspect come from? Because from somewhere I need an insurance, right? Or like collateralization.
Yeah. That is liquidations. So the equivalence to crashing your car for a credit account is let's say you use those money to do leverage trading and you lost money, or you use them to do leverage farming, but you suffer from impermanent loss, right? That's the equivalent. In that case, our our credit manager contract will monitor your account health factor and liquidate you promptly before you gets wrecked too much. So yeah, so that's the first line of defense called the first line of defense is liquidations. We have a second and third lines of defense. Second line of defense is a thing called safety fund. So for every dollar that Mars of protocol revenue that Mars Protocol earns, 80 cents go to users, 10 cents go to Mars token stakers, and the rest 10 cents goes to a fund called Safety Fund that is hosted on the Mars app chain. So as the protocol works, those revenue will accumulate in a safety fund. If there is, let's say we didn't liquidate promptly on time, or the market crashes too fast and some credit accounts goes underwater, Mars governance can choose to use the safety fund to compensate and to cover the shortfall. So currently, the safety fund can be activated only by a successful governance vote. But in the long term, our end game is that the safety fund module should be able to detect bad debt or shortfall events automatically via IBC interchain query, and just automatically triggers the compensations, right? So that's the second line. So the third line of defense, we are still discussing the tokenomics right here, so this is not at all decided. But the idea is Mars token stakers, they need to have a skin in the game, right? We don't, if you stake Mars token, you have voting power in the protocol, which can decide on risk parameters. We want Mars token stakers to have a skin in the game, so they don't just vote on all sorts of random reckless risk parameters. So in order for them to have a skin in the game, the idea is every Mars token you stake, in the case that the first two lines of defense are no longer working, like the market crashes too quickly, and we have significant amount of bad debt, then your staked Mars tokens can be auctioned off in exchange for funds to cover the bad debt. So in that case, Mars token stakers needs to be more prudent when deciding on risk parameters. And we have a third line of defense for all our users to ensure their solvency. Yeah.
I was watching Yuri's face, and I think it's not yet there, but it will come in the future, I guess. It's not that easy, right? I for myself, it's difficult.
I think like to put it like into very simple words, like the last line of defense obviously are the stakers, how it's supposed to be on each chain, right? Plainly speaking.
The stakers are on the Mars Hub app chain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah. The first line of defense is liquidations that happens individually on each outpost. The second is the safety fund. It's on Mars Hub app chain. The third line of defense are Mars stakers, which is also on the app chain.
Okay. Yeah, I think I definitely have to do more research than 100%. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense on the first view. I want to ask one more question, and then I have like two final questions that are very important, I think, in this discussion to wrap the interview a little bit up. So we basically touched this topic earlier already. You were all talking about Cosmos and how beautiful Cosmos is. And how nice it is to build. And it's actually funny because I think 3 days ago, Robert Leschner, the co-founder or founder of Compound, mentioned that he regrets his decision to use the Substrate toolkit. So he's not very happy about his decision. And he said that he's more bullish on a Cosmos interchain future, so to say. For all the people who don't know, but in 2020, also Compound planned to launch its own chain. So how do you view this? Because there is some critique against Polkadot as well. So Is Cosmos basically the paradise in order to set up blockchains? Can you say it like this in that sense? Come on, guys, I want some bullish news here for some Twitter clips. Please help me with my work.
No, I mean, look, as I said, I'll go first because my answer isn't going to be as in depth as Larry's. I'm a UI developer by trade, so you know, I'm just like the pretty pictures guy. But what I've seen, it's been insanely smooth to go, and that's why I wanted to lead with that and just give kudos to Cosmos-SDK and Tendermint guys, because it's just a fantastic toolkit. It's just a fantastic framework just to build off. And we've really had nothing but great experiences with it, to be really honest. That's the truth. But you know, who knows? Someone coming from a very different system might have a different view. Because we were so embedded in Terra and already using largely the same or very similar you know, languages, toolkits, etc. It wasn't a big jump, but I think the proof's in the pudding, right? You look at that story, you look at DYDX. I think when you've got big players in Ethereum coming over, especially considering what we spoke about, like we know that the liquidity needs to grow. We all know this, but I think you've got to follow those people. You've kind of got to follow the tech and follow the people following the tech. I think it's a no-brainer. But yeah, Larry can probably get into a bit more nitty-gritty around that stuff.
Well, for us, like Cosmos is the only choice because we need IBC for all these stuff to work. There just isn't another tech stack that is ready to implementing all this stuff. So Cosmos is our only choice. And like as a developer, I just really like the Cosmos tech stack. I mean, if you're like me, you learn CosmWasm first. You get used to CosmWasm. If you go back to Ethereum, you try to code in Solidity, it feels ancient. It just feels like archaic technology from a different era. So that's just how good it is. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Larry making friends again on the Ethereum side, I would say. Don't use this as a clip, sir.
I've also done that a bit, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's true. I mean, most of the liquidity and most of the very experienced developers are coming from the Ethereum ecosystem, obviously. So we have to be friends with them. And if you just follow these discussions with Compound and also DYDX, it seems like that they are having. So if you're talking to Ethereum people, and some of them are like big maxis, they always say, "Oh, we are no fans of Bitcoin. Polkadot is too much VC for us. Cardano doesn't even exist in their world." But if you say Cosmos, they're like, "Oh yeah, I heard some cool stuff about it and I like their tech." So that's actually pretty interesting. But speaking about tech, this is the last topic I want to introduce here, because I was like trying to wrap my head around this. So you started as Terra protocols and now you're becoming your own chain. But I think there's a lot of work to be done. So maybe Dov, you can start a little bit by talking about these challenges, and also if I hold the Kujira token, if I held it before, what happens with my token then? I mean,
yeah,
what are the challenges here?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, the migration piece was tricky. We were a bit like, whoa, okay, where do we start on this one? And thank God, you know, Hans, just amazing. He just woke up one day and he's like, I think I've cracked it. And we managed to get it to literally a migrate page where you connect your Terra wallets, which shows you your mapped Kujira address. The Kepler pop-up comes up automatically and you just say, yes, I would like to connect. And there we go. You have the Kujira network in your Kepler wallet, and hit the transfer button and voila, like all the magic happens. But that was a very, very intense piece of work. We started seeing some Terra protocols doing it, and it was, you know, like some of it was a bit like exposing seeds and all the rest of it. And we're never going to go down that route. So yeah, luckily we were able to get the solution. But that was tricky. I won't lie. You know, that's you know, that takes someone that has like a lot of experience. So yeah, the migration isn't particularly like something that just happens, you know, like we're talking a lot about IBC and Interchain, and, you know, people shouldn't get the idea that you can literally just snap your finger and, you know, one goes. It's not quite that simple. So yeah, definitely a challenge around the migration. But you asked the direct question on our Medium is the best place to go. I think it's like the third one down. If you just go to our website, kujira.app, and then the Medium link is somewhere near the footer. It's the third or fourth article down, and it's just, I think it's called Migrate to Kujira Mainnet, literally. And there is a very easy guide to follow. But, you know, there's a few sticky things in there. Sometimes a Terra station doesn't pop up, and then people are like, my migration's been running, you know, just silly things like that you can't really avoid. I don't think you're going to get like a literally seamless experience and every single, you know, the multiple tens of thousands of users. I don't think it's just going to, but, you know, we've been answering questions daily in Telegram, and for the most part, people are managing just fine. There are a lot of unmigrated tokens still, which is pretty interesting. Feels like someone's going to wake up in the next bull run and go, holy hell, you know, like what happened? But yeah, there's definitely some challenges. But again,
so people can still migrate though. Can people still migrate?
Yeah, people can still migrate, and we're not going to turn that off. You know, we might like move it down into like the footer or something to free up some area in the blue page, but then it'll be a case of probably just 1 or 2 people streaming in per week, and we just direct them to the URL, because we'd like to, you know, some of that stuff there is a little bit legacy. You know, there's a lot more we can do within the Blue app. Blue is like the all things Kujira, your dashboard, your staking, your governance, you know, and all the rest of it, where you can migrate. But yeah, we're not going to, there's no ways we're just going to say to someone, hey, you know, we agreed to a 1-to-1 swap, and that's what we're going to do for sure. They're not our tokens, you know, so yeah, people will always be able to claim them, even if it becomes like a more sort of hidden feature in the app.
And by the way, guys, you can also still claim your FMOS airdrop. That's also a thing. Speaking of unclaimed and unbridged things, so keep that in mind. If you hold the old Kujira token, keep that in mind. Larry, like, was it very difficult for you as well to basically set up a whole new infrastructure? Did you actually needed to start completely from scratch, or was something prepared already? You mentioned it that you wanted to take this interchain step before, so could you give us some insights here, please?
It's not difficult. I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's just a lot of things to do. Like, you have to set up your nodes, right, so that developers can access it. You need to set up your block explorer. You need to set up your faucet, right? So they are not difficult. It's just cumbersome. Just a lot of work to do, which I definitely think these kind of things can be improved to make it easier for new chains to bootstrap themselves. On our side, I would say that most of the difficulties come from Terra. Like, Terra made a bunch of decisions I could not agree in terms of tech. I would name a few, being the two major ones being the use of an non-standard BIP44 coin type. So if you don't know what BIP44 is, the end result of using a non-standard coin type is basically making Terra Station and Terra accounts incompatible with literally all the other chains and other wallet apps. So that's something I could not agree with. The other being not having token factory module, so that a lot of apps rely on CW20 tokens. This thing I couldn't really fault Terra, because Token Factory only came to existence, created by Osmosis team rather recently. But having to deal with CW20 is a pain. Working with native coins is much more enjoyable experience for developers. Yeah, so like a big advantage for having our own chain is we can take all of these into our own control. We can make our own decisions on all these matters. Yeah, I guess that's what sovereignty in app chain means. So that's a really great thing to have.
Yeah, on point, flexibility and independence here. And I think this is also why it's so cool to have you in the Cosmoverse now. to see so many new projects also coming from Terra and taking these advantages that the Interchain has to offer. Guys, the interview is getting longer, but I think this was a really big eye-opening panel today. Also for me, to be honest, I've learned a bunch of new things. I think the audience and the viewers as well. So thank you so much, guys. And for the viewers, of course, you can check out all the links that we mentioned in this interview in the description below. Also check out DunQR, check out Kujira, check out Larry and Mars Protocol on Twitter as well. Again, everything what you need is in the description below. With that said, thank you, Dove, thank you, DunQR, and thank you, Larry, for taking the time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have fun in Paris.
Have a good one. Yeah, have a good one.